Warning. The following program is rated TVMA. Viewer discretion is advised. In 1863, West Virginia seceded from Virginia at the height of the American Civil War. Consequently, the new state had a shortage of various public institutions, including prisons. From 1863 to 1866, Governor Arthur I. Borman lobbied the West Virginia legislature for a state penitentiary but was repeatedly denied. The legislature at first directed him to send the prisoners to other institutions out of the state, and then they directed him to use existing county jails, which turned out to be inadequate. After 9 inmates escaped in 1865, the local press took up the cause, and the legislature took action. On February 7th, 1866, the state legislature approved the purchase of land in Moundsville for the purpose of constructing a state prison. 10 acres were purchased just outside the then city limits of Moundsville for $3,000. Moundsville proved an attractive site, as it is approximately 12 miles south of Wheeling, West Virginia, which at that time was the state capital. The state built a temporary wooden prison nearby that summer. This gave prison officials time to assess what prison design should be used. They had chosen a modified version of the design of Northern Illinois Penitentiary at Joliet. Its Gothic Revival architecture exhibited great strength and conveyed to the mind a cheerless blank indicative of the misery, sorrow, and agony which awaits the unhappy being who enters within its walls. The first building constructed on the site was the North Wagon Gate. It was made with hand-cut sandstone, which was quarried from a local site. The state used prison labor during the construction process, and work continued on this first phase until 1876. When completed, the total cost was $363,000. In addition to the North Wagon Gate, there was now north and south cell blocks, measuring 300 feet by 52 feet. South Hall had 224 cells, 7 feet by 4 feet, and North Hall had a kitchen, dining area, hospital, and chapel. A 4-story tower connecting the two was the administration building, measuring 75 feet by 75 feet. It included space for female inmates and personal living quarters for the warden and his family. The facility officially opened in this year, and it had a prison population of 251 male inmates, including some who had helped construct the prison where they were incarcerated. After this phase, work began on prison workshops and other secondary facilities. In addition to construction, the inmates had other jobs to do in support of the prison. In the early 1900s, some industries within the prison walls included a carpentry shop, a paint shop, a wagon shop, a stone yard, a brickyard, a blacksmith, a tailor, a bakery, and a hospital. At the same time, revenue from the prison farm and inmate labor helped the prison financially. It was virtually self-sufficient. A prison coal mine located a mile away opened in 1921. This mine helped fill some of the prison's energy needs and saved the state an estimated $14,000 a year. Some inmates were allowed to stay at the mine's camp under the supervision of a mine foreman who was not a prison employee. Conditions at the prison during the turn of the 20th century were good, according to a warden's report which stated that both the quantity and quality of all the purchases of material, food, and clothing have been very gradually but steadily improved, while the discipline has become more nearly perfect and the exaction of labor less stringent. Education was a priority for the inmates during this time. They regularly attended class. Construction of a school and library was completed in 1900 to help reform and educate inmates. However, the conditions at the prison worsened through the years, and the facility would be ranked on the United States Department of Justice's top 10 worst violent correctional facilities list. One of the more infamous locations in the prison, with instances of gambling, fighting, and raping, was a recreation room known as the Sugar Shack. A notable inmate in the 20th century was labor activist Eugene V. Debs, who served time here from April 13th to June 14th, 1919, at which time he was transferred to an Atlanta prison on charges of violating the Espionage Act of 1917. In 1929, the state decided to double the size of the penitentiary because overcrowding was a problem. The 5 by 7 foot cells were too small to hold 3 prisoners at a time, but until the expansion, there was no other option. 2 prisoners would sleep in the bunks, with the third sleeping on a mattress on the floor. The state used prison labor again and completed this phase of construction in 1959. The construction had been delayed by a steel shortage during World War II. In total, 36 homicides took place in the prison. One of the more notable ones is the butchering of R.D. Wall, inmate number 44670. On October 8, 1929, after snitching on his fellow inmates, he was attacked while heading to the boiler room by 3 prisoners with dull shivs. In 1983, convicted multiple murderer Charles Manson requested to be transferred to this prison to be nearer to his family. His request was denied. From 1899 to 1959, 94 men were executed at the prison. Hanging was the method of execution until 1949, with 85 men meeting that fate. The public could attend hangings, which were public until June 19, 1931. On that date, Frank Heyer was executed for murdering his wife. When the trapdoor beneath him was opened and his full weight settled into the noose, he was instantly decapitated. Following this event, attendance at hangings was by invitation only. The last man executed by hanging, Bud Peterson from Logan County, was buried in the prison cemetery because his family refused to claim his body. Beginning in 1951, electrocution became the means of execution. The electric chair, named Old Sparky, used by the prison, was originally built by an inmate there, Paul Glenn. 9 men were electrocuted before the state prohibited capital punishment entirely in 1965. The original chair is on display in the facility and is included in the official tour. During its more than 100 years in operation, the Moundsville Penitentiary in West Virginia was one of America's most violent correctional facilities and the final stop for almost 1,000 criminals. The prisoners lived in cramped quarters, which led to riots. Many men were hanged or killed in the electric chair, while others were murdered by other prisoners. The prison closed in 1995, but according to some, the tortured spirits are still behind bars and in the bowels of the prison and may be seen or heard on a tour.